The colt reared and kicked and plunged and tried to throw George off, but George stuck on and finally conquered the colt so that he drove it about the field. But in a last mad plunge to free itself from this determined boy on its back, the colt burst a blood vessel and fell to the ground dead. Then the boys felt worried, you may be sure, but while they were wondering what George's mother would say, the boy went straight to the house, determined to tell the truth. "Mother," he said, "your colt is dead." "Dead?" said his mother. "Who killed it?" "I did," said George, and then he told her the whole story. His mother looked at him a moment, and then she said, "It is well, my son. I am sorry to lose the colt. It would have been a fine horse. But I am proud to know that my son never tries to put the blame of his acts upon others, and always speaks the truth." So you see that early in his life this boy was one to be depended upon. This story, too, shows you that besides his being so truthful and honest, young George Washington did not give up trying to do a thing until he had succeeded. He was bound to tame that fierce sorrel colt, and he stuck to it until he had conquered the animal, instead of letting it conquer him. He loved the woods, and he loved the water. He wanted to be a sailor. But when he saw that his mother did not wish him to go away to sea, he said, "All right, mother," and he stayed at home to help her on her farm. When he was 16 years old, he gave up going to school and became a surveyor. A surveyor is one who goes around measuring land, so that men can know just how much they own, and just where the lines run that divide it from other people's land. This work kept George out of doors most of the time, and made him healthy and big and strong. He went off into the woods and over the mountains, surveying land for the owners. He lived among Indians and bears and hunters, and became a great hunter himself. He was a fine-looking young fellow then. He was almost 6 feet tall. He was strong and active, and could stand almost anything in the way of out-of-door dangers and experiences. He had light brown hair, blue eyes, and a frank face, and he had such a nice, firm way about him, although he was quiet and never talked much, that people always believed what he said, and those who worked with him were always ready and willing to do just as he told them. When he was a boy, it took a brave man to be a surveyor. He had to live in the forests, in all sorts of dangers and risks, and had to meet all kinds of people, and settle disputes about who owned the land, when those who were quarreling about it would be very angry with the surveyor. But young George Washington always won in the end, and his work was so well done that some of his records and measurements have not been changed from that day to this. He liked the work because he liked the free life of the woods and mountains. He liked to hunt and swim and ride and row, and all these things and all these rough experiences helped him greatly to be a bold, healthy, active, and courageous man when the time came for him to be a leader and a soldier. People liked him so much that when there was trouble between the two nations that owned almost all the land in America when he was a boy, he was sent with a party to try and settle a quarrel as to which nation owned the land west of Virginia, in what is now called Ohio. These two nations were France and England. Their kings were far over the Atlantic Ocean. Virginia and all the country between the mountains and the sea, from Maine to Georgia, belonged to the King of England. There was no president then. There were no United States. George Washington went off to the Ohio country and tried to settle the quarrel, but the French soldiers would not settle it as the English wished them to. They built forts in the country and said they meant to keep it all for the King of France. So George Washington was...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.